Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Baseball Without Borders, the 38th. 38, like, who's that, Kurt Schilling? Did he wear number 38? His Twitter handle was Garrick38 because he, for some reason, thinks he's as good as Lou Gehrig. Maybe he's just crazy, but well, we know he's just crazy, but that's beside the point. Anyhow, episode 38. Life Scottnick back with you, joined by my colleague Matthew Tallerini. And Matt, a lot of action going on in the baseball world, but a lot of action in Europe this week. Tell us about what's going on over there.
Yeah, so Europe has a few tournament sectors through the World Baseball Softball Confederation. The Baseball European Confederation Cup is going to be in Croatia this year. So basically, they're going to do it in four Rijek baseball field in Karlovac, Croatia. That's where it's going to be located, and it's going to be located from June 7th to June 11th. The teams that are going to be playing in the WBSC Europe sector for the Baseball European Confederation Cup are Astros Club Baseball out of the Spaniard League. They've been really dominant in that league for quite some time, winning several championships. They're from Valencia, Spain, and they're going to be playing the first game against the Hoboken Pioneers from the Belgium Division One circuit on June 7th, 2020 of this week. So, yeah, and there's going to be another four sector of teams. The Tenerife Marlins Porta Cruz from Spain. They're going to be playing against the Flyers baseball and softball team out of the Sweden Division One circuit that they have over there. Yes, Switzerland. The Vienna Wanderers are going to be playing that are from the Australian League, the BK Olimpija circuit team. They're going to be playing. They're from Croatia. That they're in the Group A circuit. So yeah, it's going to be a few teams out of that circuit for the first day of June 7th, and yeah, it's going to be a couple teams in this tournament circuit as well for this event. And the Baseball European Champions Cup, they're going to have a few teams also. That's going to go on from June 6th to June 10th. That's going to be in two cities in the Netherlands, in Bussum, Netherlands, and Amsterdam. Amsterdam's park is called Loewende Ballpark, and the Bussum, Netherlands field is called Rob Hoffman Villay. That's that's the other state. Those are the other complexes for the other European tournament in the World Baseball Softball Confederation sector. The teams that are playing on June 6th are the Untouchables Paderborn out of the Bundesliga German circuit. They're playing against the 1949 Parma baseball club from the Serie A1 league in Italy. And those two teams are in Group A of the tournament. And then SKSB Arrows out of the Czech Republic, they're in Group B along with the Bonn Capitals from the Bundesliga Germany League. And the other Group B teams are Rouen Huskies from France. Those are going to be one of the other games today, playing against ACAW, the Netherlands, and the other next two teams that are going to be playing later in the day in the Netherlands. The Amsterdam Pirates, who've been a consistent team in the Netherlands circuit, in the Honkbal Hoeflash League circuit, they're going to be playing against Jachi Brno out of the Extra Liga Czech League. Those both teams are in Group A. And yeah, and also in the World Baseball Softball Confederation Americas, you have the Pan American qualifiers. They're going to start around June 16th to the June 21st with a few countries such as Canada, Panama, Peru, Argentina. There's going to be several other teams too in that mix
Where's
as
that one
well.
being played, Matt?
Buenos Aires, Argentina,
That's
the
quite
Pan
a trip.
American qualifier. Yeah, so Peru is playing Honduras. They're in one round robin circuit. I said host nation Argentina. Canada's in that circuit as well for the Pan American qualifier. Um, Argentina is ranked 29th in the world. Canada is ranked 13th. Honduras is ranked 43rd. Panama is ranked 14th. Peru is ranked 40th in the world. So yeah, a lot of competition in for the Pan American qualifiers and what's at stake. And the main Pan American games are going to be in late October of this year. So yeah, I mean, a lot of international baseball to look forward to, even if the World Baseball Classic doesn't stop. There's definitely a lot of certain coverage to look up with the World Baseball Softball Confederation. So yeah, cool and neat stuff happening from the international side.
Back here in the United States, the NCAA baseball tournament going on. We've got 9 deciding games as the regional round comes to a close. Out of 16 regionals, 9 of them have gone to Monday. So that means, of course, that 7 of them ended yesterday. So let's take a look at who advanced yesterday um, out of the regionals. Matt, take us through yesterday's action, and then I'll talk about today's.
Yeah, yesterday Texas pretty much put on a great performance. I thought all around against the number 9 team in the country, University of Miami. I think that their pitching really held up in this round. I mean, they went going 3-0 and coming off a short disappointment in the Big 12 tournament down in Arlington, Texas. I think the Longhorns just really knew it was at stake going to Coral Gables during this past weekend.
Yeah, Texas was bounced, what, the second day of the Big 12 tournament, and they really responded to that in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, like their offense too, pretty much has gone, in full circle. I mean, Jack O'Dowd, Peyton Powell, a lot of key guys in their pitching staff. Zane Morehouse, he filled 2 2/3 of innings yesterday just to hold Miami's tough offense. I mean, to a certain length of runs during the later innings out of yesterday. So I think Texas will have what it takes to go far in this NCAA tournament. I think they are in a good position to get to Omaha and appear like they did last year to get back to Omaha, let alone. So I think Texas really has a good run at what they're up against. I think it's key that you know their offense is just as relentless, and I think that they can really even probably win the whole thing. I mean, they just have to wait the opponent for Stanford and Texas A&M, which is later today
Right.
as well.
So a couple notable games going on today. Trey Richardson, we should talk about him, right? Texas Christian University. He had 11 RBIs in the Horned Frogs 20-5 win against Pig Suey from Arkansas. They literally made chop suey out of the Razorbacks on the ball field, and that was at Arkansas. So, home field advantage meant nothing for the Razorbacks yesterday. Richardson with 2 grand slams in the first 2 innings, and then another homer later in the game. And that forces a deciding game today in the Fayetteville Regional that's going to be played at 9 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN Plus. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting. But you know which one I'm really looking forward to today, Matt?
Which game?
Pennsylvania is playing Southern Miss in the Auburn Regional. So you have 2 teams that were not top 16 seeds playing for a chance to go to the Super Regional, and an Ivy League team on top of that. Penn has played 49 games this year, but they play a much smaller schedule than some of these teams that have played 60, 65 games. So it's great to see a team like that have a chance to reach the Super Regional, as my Apple Watch is being annoying. But yeah, so Penn and Southern Miss, that game's at 3 o'clock today in the Auburn Regional. Auburn, of course, getting bounced out yesterday. Which ones are you looking forward to today, Matt?
I think Stanford too at being the home team in this game. I think that's going to be key going up against Texas A&M. Stanford being number 8th in the country, I think they'll really have an aligned adjustment of what's at stake. It's win or go home for both programs, but I think Stanford really wants to get back to how their program was in the mid 2000s, going consistently to Rosenblatt Stadium during that time frame. I think this program is really destined out of the Pac-12, and I don't I don't foresee about like what lies ahead of them, let alone in the bracket. Even if they do advance into the super regionals, I just think they just have pitching. They just have key pitching that's like really as standard. Tommy Troy, he's batting 667 with a .73 on base percentage and a 1.167 slugging percentage this year. And he's been 8 for 12 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs during these last few games. I think that their offense can get hot at the right time if they really want to see a deep stint of this month span. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting that they'll have to play against the Texas Longhorns, and they're also starving to get to Omaha of how dominant their rich history of their program has always been throughout the years.
Yeah, Texas, of course, um, a long, long history of baseball success, of great players, of great programs, great teams. And it's been a while since Texas has been, at the top of the college baseball world, but certainly some improvement elsewhere in college baseball. Texas Tech and Florida underway. That game down in Gainesville. LSU is going to play Oregon State and Baton Rouge at 2 o'clock. Arkansas and TCU are actually playing two games today. The first at 3 p.m. and then, if necessary, at 9 p.m. I wanted to correct that from earlier. Penn and Southern Miss at 3 o'clock. Oregon State and LSU will play again at 6 o'clock if that game is necessary. Coastal Carolina and Duke playing in Conway, South Carolina at the campus of Coastal Carolina at 6 p.m. Indiana and Ben Seiler, the subject of my college baseball feature a couple weeks ago. They are playing Kentucky in Lexington at 6 p.m. tonight, and then Texas A&M and Stanford at 9 p.m. in Palo Alto. So that's the look around college baseball today. Matt, over the weekend, the Yankees doing well out in Los Angeles, taking a few from the Dodgers. Your thoughts on that series?
I thought it was big of what happened with the Yankees offense yesterday. I think it was big to see Anthony Volpe, I mean, shine under the Hollywood lights in Chavez Ravine. I mean, what more can you go out in a guy like Volpe? I think that's key of how his offense has been really been pushed to the limit, honestly, with how, just what the Yankees offense has been dealing with this year. I mean, having Aaron Hicks didn't really, facilitate most of their lineup, even if, you still had Hicks in the lineup. It felt like you had three different pieces of the Yankees lineup not be filled. But I think during this, road stand, I think that the Yankees really have what it takes to get hot now at the right time and pretty much have a really good record right before the All Star break.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a couple of big wins on any West Coast road trip are good. Obviously, it's easier to be a Western team going east than it is to be an Eastern team going west. So anytime an East Division team can go out west and pick up a couple wins, that's only a good thing. Um, Also notable, Roger Craig, the former San Francisco Giants manager, passed away over the weekend at age 93. And so I'm 43 years old. So Craig took over the San Francisco Giants in 1986. And as the son of a Giants fan, there was always something of a focus on what the Giants were doing in my house growing up. Although we lived in New Jersey, the Giants had moved to the West Coast 23 years before I was born. My dad clung to his Giants fandom and still does. So Roger Craig was kind of an important guy for that period of my childhood that he managed the Giants. After all, he got them to the '89 World Series, the Earthquake Series. But one of the more interesting facts I think is that Roger Craig was the starter for the final Brooklyn Dodgers game and the starter for the first ever game played by the New York Mets. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, played most of his career in the National League, or actually all of his playing career was in the National League with, I believe, the Cardinals, the Dodgers. Obviously, he was with the Dodgers for quite a while. The Reds and the Mets, and then had quite a successful career as a coach and a manager. And you look back at the Giants' tenure in San Francisco, and yeah, they made a World Series in the early 60s, but after that, there wasn't a lot of success until you get to the late 80s. And Craig was a big part of that success. They built that team around Will Clark and Kevin Mitchell and Mike Krukow and some of those guys. They had a team that was very, very good and had a lot of role players and a lot of very good players on it. But nobody that sticks out as a tremendous player. And usually, for a team like that to win, you need to have a manager that's good at getting everybody to pull the rope in the right direction. And certainly he did that. The 89 series is the first one. I remember the 87 and the 88 World Series, but I really remember the 89 World Series because it was the first time that, you know, somebody other than myself was really excited to watch baseball in our house growing up because the Giants were back in the World Series for the first time in quite a long time. So my dad was really hyped up about it. And then, of course, we all know what happens minutes before game one starts with the earthquake. And I remember watching it on the little TV that we had, and my dad just losing his mind about WABC in New York losing transmission from the satellite, which was what the staff announcer had come on and said. What we didn't know, because the audio got cut off, if you watch a video of it from YouTube or wherever now, you'll hear Al Michaels say, "Well, I tell you what, I think we're having an earthquake." I I never actually heard Al Michaels say that, or at least I don't remember that. I think the transmission had cut off before that. So um, I definitely, look back fondly on that period of Giants history and Roger Craig's tenure as their manager because I think it meant a lot to my father, and I think it meant a lot to Giants fans, and it really put the Giants on the trajectory to where they are now in a better stadium with better ownership and a much more stable future than they had even in the late 1980s. Because remember that the Giants organization up to that point had been rumored to move to three different cities. There had been a rumored move to Toronto in the 1970s, to Buffalo around the late 80s or early 90s, as well as potentially moving to Tampa Bay and moving into the Trop, and obviously, an expansion team would go in there in 1998. But, a lot of that success that Roger Craig brought to the Giants in the late 1980s enabled Oracle Park, or, the new ballpark in San Francisco to get built. It enabled the Giants to be sold to an ownership that took better care of the franchise and really built what San Francisco baseball has today. And Roger Craig was a big part of that.
Yeah, so the earthquake happened right before game 3.
Yeah, it
So
was game three. I'm sorry.
yeah. So the first 2 games were played in Oakland, and Oakland won the first 2 games. Game 1, 5-0, and game 2, 5-2. Oh no, 5-1, sorry, in Oakland Alameda Coliseum. So, I mean, yeah, like, I've talked to people about, you know, pretty much how they felt about that time frame, even being a Giants fan. And I think my biggest crossover was that I had a greatly appreciated family friend of mine as my neighbor growing up, loving the Brooklyn Dodgers. And he would always tell me stories about you know, growing up in Flatbush, what it meant to him. And I felt, that this culture in New York missing those teams. And then how 89 comes around, you had the Dodgers and the Giants going back in those circuits. Even though they came out of California, I think it's big too to enrich that history of like just baseball in general. I think Yeah, Roger Craig will definitely be very missed in our sport without a question for what he brought to baseball. But yeah, looking forward to what's ahead. There's a lot of Monday game slate too. We'll try to get this up right before some of the early evening night games. We have a makeup that I see clearly with the Tampa Bay Rays at 42-19, playing against the Boston Red Sox up at Fenway. The Red Sox are 30-29. Um, Life, what are your thoughts about the Rays pitching staff? I mean, Shane McClanahan has been pitching really consistent this year. He's 8-1 with a 2.07 ERA through 12 games that he started. 69.2 innings pitched, with a whip at 1.15 and striking out 82 batters. I think he's going to be a big key for them if he stays healthy down the stretch for Tampa to make a run into October. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think Tampa Bay has, if you go on MLB.com and you look at their pitching statistics, the Rays have a cumulative ERA of 3.70. Their whip's right around 1.23. Their opponent batting average is 230. And I think, you know, the opponent batting average is more telling, I think, than the whip, because everybody's right around between 1.15 and 1.4. So, it's just a couple of little points here and there that make a big difference in that regard. But, Tampa Bay finds creative ways to get things done on the field, and they also, you know, they're really good at finding guys that are going to come there and be effective that don't cost a lot of money, and that's been the Rays MO for quite a while. But it's not just McClanahan, and McClanahan, has 8 wins on the season, and of course, I'm never going to get away from the opportunity to remind everybody that the pitching win is basically a useless statistic. But Zach Eflin also effective, and he's got a whip of 1.0, 57 strikeouts on the year. He's only made 10 starts but pitched 60 innings. And McClanahan's gone 12 starts, 69 and 2/3 innings. But the Rays are also getting a lot of effective pitching elsewhere. Jeffrey Springs, he's only been in 3 games this year, but his WHIP is 0.50 through 16 innings, and opposing batters are hitting 0.80. So you look at some of the guys uh, that Tampa has in that pitching staff, and they're really doing a good job getting it done. And it's not just starters, it's everybody, because Tampa Bay was the first team to really engage in using an opener, using an effective reliever to get the top of the opposing order out at the top of the first inning, rather than using your most effective short reliever at the end of the game, where he might be facing 7, 8, and 9 hitters. It's intuitive, right? Use your most effective guy against their most effective guys. So, you know, the it's interesting because the Rays have put 30 different players on the mound this year. That includes some position pitcher pitching, because Luke Raley and Christian Bethencourt are both included in that, and neither of them were effective in their outings. Raley more so than Bethencourt, but Raley has a 4.13 whip, and opponents are batting 579 against him in 2 appearances. He does have 1 strikeout on the year, so we'll give him that. But, all joking aside, there are 26 pitchers that have appeared in games for Tampa Bay, and most of them have been pretty dang effective. So, you look around the staff that they've put together, and it goes a long way to explain the record that the Rays have on this year.
Yeah, no, without a question. I think, even their offense has really proved a lot, like Isaiah Paredes, Randy Rosarena. I think, you know, those are key guys that have really stepped to the plate this year tremendously for their offense. And I think, having them like right where they are right now in the American League East, they're 4 games in front of the Orioles. The Orioles are 37-22. I think that the Rays, being that, you know, they could make a run at this World Series, I think, this year. And maybe there will be fans, like, do they come up to the ballpark in August and see a winning product? And this is it. Like, this is, do they have a station to mount for their organization to stay in the Tampa Bay area? Because I think this season's key of what they're doing as an organization and alone in what's going on in baseball. But I think they have what it takes to make a run and possibly at least hold the American League pennant if it comes down to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest problem with Tampa Bay and their attendance is the ballpark and its location. But you know, if you put a winning team on the field, as I've said before, winning solves all problems and sells tickets. So a win for uh, a win for Tampa Bay going forward. If they can make it to the World Series, the ballpark's going to be full. Even into September, I think people are going to start coming out. So, obviously they need it, but they're doing well.
Yeah, well, like there's a little bit of other course of games today also. What also sparked my eye is Julio Tirion is starting today for the Milwaukee Brewers at 32-27. Julio Tirion's making a trail back to Major League Baseball. Julian wrote a good column, a good piece, a good article-based piece about his last start. So go check that out on World Baseball Network. Staff writer Julian Goulardi. So yeah, I think this type of game for him, I think he can hold his composure against that Cincinnati Reds offense. I mean, you know, in two starts right now, entering his third start, he's 1-1 with a 0.82 earned a run average through 11 innings pitched. And yeah, I think his command has been as effective too for what he's doing back in Major League Baseball. And and the opponent's average are hitting it off 195 against him. He's striking out 5 batters and has only walked 1 batter entering his third start today. So, I mean, yeah, keep your eyes out for him. He may not be an all-star this year, but I think Julio Tirion could catch a lot of eyes. I mean, for other Major League Baseball organizations to see what's going on, if they could fill a spot in their rotation, maybe in the trade deadline too, for a late run. I think he's really due for the market. And Andrew Abbott's going for the Cincinnati Reds, and he's making his Major League debut. So, yeah, congrats to Andrew Abbott on making his Major League debut since he's been called up to the Cincinnati Reds organization and Andrew Abbott. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a really intriguing game today. Also, do you have any other intriguing games today, Life, or what do you think about the Pirates? I
I
think
mean,
that's a little
the
interesting.
Pirates, if the Pirates can't win this series against Oakland, as a team that's 4 games over 500 and exceeding expectations, if you can't take a series from a team that's 12-49, um, you know, you're doing something wrong. But that said, I think Pittsburgh has, as I've said, they have an effective squad. You know, and coming into a early week series against Oakland, you hope that they're not going to take their foot off the gas against them, and they're a major league ball club, so I wouldn't expect that. But Johan Oviedo's starting today for the Buccos, 6'5", 245-pounder out of Havana. He's had a decent season. He's effective, 4.50 ERA, 1.55 WHIP. Not stellar numbers, but he'll get the job done. And Oakland just really doesn't have much power in that lineup. Um, Former Yankee prospect James Kaprelian, who's not having a great season, he's 0-6 with an 8.12 ERA on the mound tomorrow for Oakland against Mitch Keller, and then on Game 3 of the series, it's going to be Contreras for Pittsburgh against Harris for Oakland. Um, and then that series comes to an end on Wednesday. You've got to think that the Pirates will get a sweep, but you know, they play the games for a reason, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I definitely we'll definitely see what's at stake even for their homestand against the worst team in baseball for sure. And yeah, I mean, what's at stake too. I think the Marlins, they have a lot to prove. Even if they're playing the Royals for, this 3-game set, I think they have really strung around like in the NL East this year, being 3.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves, having, Luis Arias, he has really produced tremendously for that offense, and let alone what his capabilities are to just work counts efficiently. Jorge Soler has been, a tremendous boost to their offense. Brian Dela Cruz, Jesus Luzardo has been a key deal for their pitching staff, and Yuli Perez since being called up. I think the Marlins are going to be really interesting to see down the line through the course of this month. If they can at least, be behind at a decent rate before the All-Star break, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami could take the Atlanta Braves over the NL East come September.
Yeah, I mean the exciting guy to watch really is Arias because he's hitting 392 right now, and batting average isn't indicative of everything, but he's getting on base at a 445 clip. So basically, every other plate appearance, Luis Arias is reaching base. But beyond that, he's 61 points ahead of Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna in batting average. Um, by comparison, he has 80 hits in 204 at bats. Freeman 80 hits in 242 at bats, and Acuna 78 hits in 236 at bats. Arias has drawn just 19 walks. So, you know, Freeman with 28 walks, Acuna with 29 walks, and Arias getting on base at a much higher clip than both of them. So, he's a guy that is really fun to watch. He's always getting on base. He doesn't really hit for power. Only one triple, one home run this year, 14 doubles. So, basically, what's that? 54 of his 64 hits, all singles. But you know, it's better to get on base than to be retired. So, he's an exciting player to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how he does down the stretch and if he's able to maintain this hot bat.
Yeah, without a question, honestly, it'll be really interesting to see what he's capable of. But yeah, um, yeah, like I said with the Marlins, I think they could make a run at the playoffs this year. I think like they're another fan base. They're another fan base that where a lot of the road attendance at like predominant fan base really fill up that stadium. But if they have a winning team like they did in 97 and 2003, or certain years where they have made a couple close playoff runs late in the season, I think they could pretty much capitalize with excelling that ballpark to another phase than just being packed with the World Baseball Classic and the Caribbean Series next year. If the Marlins were to keep winning as many games, I think it's big. I think it's going to be big to see what happens for the Miami Marlins organization. But yeah, um, we'll see. So what do you think, Life? Any other news? Or I think great Blake Snell, one
Yeah,
and
I mean,
six,
there's a guy,
4.5. It's ridiculous.
Blake Snell. There's a guy that won a Cy Young and since then hasn't been particularly effective on the mound. Um, it's hard to say what the difference has been. Obviously, since he got to San Diego, he has been less and less effective. The year he won the Cy Young, 2018 with Tampa Bay, his ERA plus was 217. So that means he was 117% better than the league average. And he's been basically hovering right around the league average or worse the 5 years since then. His ERA plus 103 in 2019, 127 in 2020, a year that he went 4-2 and only made 11 starts in 50 innings, obviously because of COVID. 2021, ERA plus of 92, which means he was 8% below the league average overall. 27 starts, ERA of 4.2. A little better in 22, 112 ERA plus, 3.38 ERA, but not spectacular. Went 8 and 10 in 24 starts. He also has not really pitched an entire season as a starter since his Cy Young season in 2018. He has not. The most starts he's made was 27 in 2021. 11 starts this year, ERA plus of 90, highest whip of his career so far this year, 1.50, with a 4.50 ERA. So, you know, I can't figure out what he's doing differently. I'd have to look at the TrackMan data and Baseball Savant, but he's a guy that looked like he would be great for years to come, and has just not been able to get it done since his one big season.
Yeah. No, definitely it'll be interesting if he can maintain like certain amount of his command. I mean, I think that's like the biggest adjustment that he needs to make on his breaking pitches. If he's keeping batters as off balance, I think, he'll be fine in no time. But yeah, starting 1-6 during, the first 2 months of the season, you gotta